Now, the relationship between architecture and urbanism has been thought about by different thinkers and different approaches, from the Noli map of Rome to Camillo Sitte, art of building cities, and then later on Jane Jacobs, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, and Aldo Rossi's The Architecture of the City. And they all tried to kind of understand how buildings, and particularly complex buildings, big buildings and big campuses, they work with the city. Now, the latest one is space syntax theory from great thinker Bill Hillier, I particularly like this, of course, because I've been using it in the past 25 years. Now, in a nutshell and very briefly, space syntax is about understanding space and society as one paradigm, as one thing. And by developing methods and techniques to analyze the built environment in relationship with human being, with movement, with behavior, cognition, wayfinding, then we have a nice bridge between these two things, between space, built-time environment, place, location, and human being. And this, as a tool, as a whole approach, is an excellent way of understanding all type of spatial systems. And the very good thing about this approach is that it removes that particular problem of scale. So we can look at really small systems like buildings and very large systems, and also see the relationship between them, because what links them is the issue of space and people, and how these things relate to each other through human activity. Now, the campus is probably not here, but somewhere between an urban tissue or a district and a city, and we would like to see it as such. The space syntax theory and these methodologies, they have contributed to a particular way of doing design, and we call it evidence-based design, but it's a specific approach to design. Any design process is an iterative process. So you have steps. You start from a brief, and then you do this and that. But then you go back and check yourself, evaluate it, and then you move to the next step. Our kind of approach is we use these models that I referred to as a starting point to understand the brief, and then contribute to the generation of ideas. And then, by taking into consideration wider issues, try to kind of test them using the same models, and then try to refine the options and the solutions using the same sort of approach. And then continue that as long as we need, and the output is a design output. The difference here is that we have a tool really to understand the design better, contribute to the design in a better way, but also to understand how it will perform in future. Now, I use this sort of approach in my design teaching at University College London. I'm running a course called Spatial Design, Architecture and Cities. In fact, it was founded by Bill Hillier in 1974. So it's about 40 years. The course has been there, one of the oldest at Bartlett. And in this course, one of the modules, I asked the students to look at a complex building in the context of the city and try to kind of understand all the scales, from very micro scale to very macro scale of the spatial system. Last year, I gave the students South Kensington Knowledge Quarter as a case study, and that included Imperial College, Natural History Museum, and Victoria Albert Museum. I think this was enough to create a good understanding of this, and I'm going to show you some of this work very quickly. This is the sort of the context of this, the Natural History Museum and Victoria Albert Museum. and Imperial College, and you have Exhibition Road here. The students, they looked at land uses and activities. They, as you see, that we have a very interesting mix of users, although they kind of cluster here and there, but it is quite interesting and all surrounded by residential activities. Then they observed activity of people, pedestrian movement, and these are the flows in weekday and weekend. They also looked at the type of these activities, what sort of people they are. And in the case of Imperial College, it's quite interesting. These are non-student kind of pedestrian, and these are student pedestrians. And you see that the campus is used by non-students. It's not only the students who use it. And it has an interesting relationship in terms of activity with its surrounding. The students also use these type of models, which is spatial network analysis and looks at the accessibility of places. So they sort of, the hotter you are, the redder you are, you're more accessible. And you can run it for different scales. And this is a citywide scale. And it shows that the campus is actually integrated nicely. It has close access or proximity to these very important global connectors in London, such as Cromwell Road and so on. But if you look at the 400-meter accessibility analysis, you see that it's kind of it creates a very inward-looking, if you like, system, and is isolated from other systems that are around it, such as Old Brompton Road and so on. If you increase a little bit the scale of the analysis or the radius of the analysis at 1,200 meters, you see that these local areas, they kind of overlap and they link with each other to create a really nice sequence of local systems that the campus can benefit from. The Kensington High Street, Old Brompton, Knightsbridge, and so on. Sorry, this is South Kensington. This is Old Brompton. Then the students look at the sort of permeability, the visual and sort of access permeability of the campus. And as you see, actually, it's not ideal. It's not bad, but it is kind of a very, I would say, opaque kind of surrounding or perimeter. And they looked at the internal activities. They looked at issues such as level difference, which is a big thing in Imperial College. And they used this type of analysis to see, what's going on. And they found that, they have a very interesting, very well kind of configured ground floor, but the ground floor is something like that. It's not allocated to proper users. And then they develop ideas to kind of resolve some of these problems, and then went beyond the premises of the campus. And then they try to kind of visualize the ideas. This is, how to punch through this building and connect it to the back of the building, and then transform this courtyard to a public space and connect it with Exhibition Road. Then, yes, and they try to kind of enhance the links to surrounding areas. This is the passage to Royal School of Music, which could be really enhanced, and enhance the relationship between levels and the main public space. Then they had a tool really to test their ideas and see if it works or not. Same thing happened in Victoria and Albert Museum. They looked at the internal layout of the building and tried to enhance it. They also looked at the outside and how they could do that as well. One of the most interesting projects came from the students who worked on Natural History Museum, and they not only looked at Natural History Museum, they also looked at Victoria and Albert Museum, Science Museum, and connection with the Imperial College and South Kensington. And then they went through a series of tests and evaluation to see how their design decision would impact the project and the wider urban surroundings. I came across the conclusions of one of these groups, and I thought it was perfect for this. Let's see how it is. They said, that was the conclusion. They said the recommendation for Imperial College, but also it could be applied to any campus. The word is not probably right, extrovertise, but what they meant by it is that the campus needs to open up and really work with the city. Make it more permeable, as we discussed. Is more permeability of the campus allows better functioning, internal functioning, and also outside relationship. Refurbish without relocating, and the idea is that there are a lot of small things that you can change about these campuses. You don't really have to demolish half of the campus in order to achieve that. Unify the whole. There are bits and pieces within the campus that work kind of in isolation from each other. You can really link them together and create a bigger whole. And the final thing, which I think is the most important thing, is benefit from the context, benefit from what is surrounding you, and also make contribution to the city in return. And that's, in my view, what makes great campuses. Thank you very much.